Hello people of the internet. In today's video, I will be bringing you on a tour of the Singapore Zoo. Now I hear you, visiting a zoo in 2020? Isn't that really unsafe? Well, in Singapore, it actually isn't. You see, we are actually encouraged to visit tourist attractions because there hasn't really been any international tourists since March. It has even gotten to the point where the government is writing a stimulus check of $100 not to pay for groceries but to use for tourist attractions. So in this video, I'll be going through my trip to the Singapore Zoo, how much it costs, how to get there, stuff like that. And of course, some tips and tricks on how to make the most out of your experience during this weird COVID season. And make sure you stick around to the end of this video because I'll be going through some dark truths behind the Singapore Zoo. And if you like what you're seeing here, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and consider subscribing. So the zoo in question today is of course the world-renowned Singapore Zoo, home of the famous long-tailed macaque, the white Bengal tigers, as well as a whole host of other cool animals. Now the Singapore Zoo is known for its animal conservation efforts, as well as having a modern barrier-free concept for its outdoor animal exhibits. So basically, there's no physical cage separating you from the animals. You're instead separated from them via a moat or a steep drop-off from the viewing platform. Although in my opinion, it's still kind of a poor excuse for actual habitat for the animals. But hey, who am I to judge? I'm no biologist. Now, visiting during this COVID season has its perks and its downsides. Perks being that it's a lot less crowded since there's a capacity limit and there are time slots to enter the zoo. Cons being that there's a capacity limit and there's time slots to enter the zoo. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, since there are time slots to stagger the crowd to prevent overcrowding, you now have to book literally everything online. Admission slot, tram ticket, if you want to feed the giraffes or the pigs, online still. So if you show up unannounced, you probably won't even get in. So you gotta keep that in mind. Getting to the Singapore Zoo. Now the Singapore Zoo is located quite a distance from the city centre, inside what's known as the Central Catchment Reserve. And you have a few basic options to get to the zoo, the easiest being either you drive there or you just take a taxi. And if you're planning on taking public transportation, you can either take bus 927 from Kranji, bus 138 from Ang Mo Kio, or the Mandai shuttle from Khatib MRT. Once you reach the zoo, there'll be a bunch of signs that will direct you to the zoo, and you can basically just follow the crowd. They're probably going to the same place as you. Now keep in mind that if you're visiting in 2020, 2021, the zoo is currently unearthing a huge chunk of the forest, ironically, for the construction of the relocated bird park that used to be in Jurong, as well as a new wildlife resort or something. So you might see quite a lot of hoarding around, which could be quite confusing at times, as well as some construction noise near the entrance, but it's not that bad. Once you're in the zoo, feel free to just casually stroll around, take in all the wildlife. You don't really need a super detailed itinerary where you need to run around collecting fast passes like it's Disneyland or something. But the timings that you do need to take note of are the shows. Why? Because all the shows at the zoo have a capacity limit, and it's quite a small capacity limit. It's first come, first serve, so it's gonna run out pretty quickly. So the shows they have, I believe, are I think Splash Safari, Saving the Rainforest or something like that. They're about 15 to 20 minutes long. There's usually one morning show and one afternoon show. So let's say if a show is due to start at 11 o'clock, it is probably advisable for you to show up maybe half an hour to an hour before to queue up. Also, some shows might be suspended for whatever reason, so make sure to check their website for the availability before you make your way down. Now, I for one didn't watch any of the shows this time, but I did record a bit of one of the shows that I saw at the Night Safari a while back, so get you a rough sense of what a show at the zoo will be like. Now, whether it's something that's worth queuing up an hour for, I'll leave it up to you to decide.
Insects, worms, snakes, and even the prize eggs. Once satisfied, you will return to the trees and settle for the night. Swim and dive underwater, and they wear a layer of short hair so dense that water cannot penetrate. The Eurasian eagle owls, as the name suggests, can be found in Europe and also in some parts of Asia. They are one of the largest species of owls in the world. Now, an owl like Midnight can actually eat up to 1,000 mice in a year. Now this is very important because they act as a biological control to control population of rodents, especially important in the agricultural sector.
Now, in terms of the exhibits and the animal activity, whether they are walking around or like lazing somewhere out of view, it is really hit or miss because, they're animals. I seem to have better luck chancing across active animals in the afternoon sun, so maybe like 3-4 o'clock, as opposed to other times of the day, but your mileage may vary. Highlights for me were narrowly avoiding getting peed on by an orangutan hanging above us in the tree, as well as being able to pet a goat on its head. Now for food and drinks, there is a restaurant in the center of the zoo where the main tram station is. I believe it's called the Orangutan Restaurant after a very famous orangutan. And quite a famous specialty of this restaurant is being able to dine with an orangutan. I'm not exactly sure whether this is still available during the COVID season. You're gonna have to check that out for yourself. Personally, I don't really comprehend the appeal of dining with a literal monkey, unless you're with kids and you want to impress them or something, but okay, you do you. Other than the main restaurants, there are a bunch of snack carts dotted around the zoo that also sell drinks and like slushies. Sort of what you expect from like Disneyland or like Universal Studios. Also, there is a KFC at the children's section of the park, so if you're itching for some fried chicken, probably go there. Now for pricing. How much does it cost to visit this splendid zoo? Well, for adults, it'll cost you about $30, and for children aged 3 to 12, about $20. Now you can add a few extra dollars to this if you are not a Singapore citizen, PR, or holding a work permit. Now of course there are multi-park deals for you to get a cheaper price of admission, usually pairing the zoo with like the River Safari. Now the River Safari is sort of like a much smaller attraction directly adjacent to the zoo. Now this could be a great deal for you if you want to add a little extra oomph to your little zoo visit. I would definitely not recommend visiting the River Safari alone because there isn't actually that much stuff there. You could easily walk the entire thing in about an hour. But hey, if the price is right, both parks could make for a pretty swell half-day trip. Now getting on to the more delicate subjects regarding the zoo, and I guess zoos in general, not just the Singapore Zoo. Really, if you think about it, to erect this cool zoo and the other parks that surround it, and I don't dispute the grandeur of the zoo as well as, the wildlife resort they're eventually going to build around it, but they did have to excavate quite a large chunk of mature rainforest to build this part of the zoo. And besides, it's not as if Singapore is really that progressive with its animal rights and their living conditions to begin with. I remember as a kid, maybe like 10 years ago, they were still offering rides on their elephants for like $5 a piece. Now obviously they have since stopped that practice when it became well known that such an act is harmful to the animals, but it's maybe something to think about. Now I don't dispute the zoo's efforts for raising awareness for animal conservation. I think they do quite a good job at it. But I think there is plenty of room for healthy skepticism on the actions that the zoo has taken in the past and are continuing to take. Because first and foremost, it is a tourist attraction and its primary aim is to generate profit. Now, there might not be physical cages for the animals, as the zoo's publicity will very happily inform you, but the animals are neither free nor really natural. So there was my little zoo guide from my visit to the Singapore Zoo. Now I know I didn't really go into all the animals that are around, but honestly, you're at a zoo. What are you really expecting? The Singapore Zoo, for all intents and purposes as a zoo, is really good. You get a wide variety of animals. The park layout is well thought out and overall it's quite a pleasant experience as a tourist. So comment below what you think about this world-renowned zoo, and if you think that zoos really play that important of a role in the protection of our natural world. As always, zoo seems like a necessary evil in promoting the conservation of animals. As a kid, if all you saw were cats and dogs, and you've never seen like a real tiger or elephant with your own eyes, chances are you never develop an appreciation for the natural world. But then again, with stuff like VR and augmented reality, zoos are starting to feel more and more like a bit of an anachronism. But hey, what do I know, right? I'm just a dumb kid, doesn't even have a college degree. So anyways, if you like this video, make sure to show your appreciation by going down below and giving the video a thumbs up. And do consider subscribing if you would like to see more cool videos like this one. Bye bye.